Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Carla, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Slover?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Price? Here. Commissioner Sykes?
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Here.
Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
All present?
Okay. All right, next up is agenda approval. If there are any items that need to be removed from the agenda from tonight's meeting, now is the time to do so. Are there any items that need to be pulled from tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
Mayor, move to approve this evening's agenda as given.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Our next item is citizen recognition.
Mr. Mayor, we had planned to recognize the remaining member of the Desert Planters Club here in Aztec, Diane Lane, but she was unable to join us tonight. And we were going to recognize the YCC participants of this year's program. Ed's got a couple of slides we'll show of the Rose Garden rebuild or renovation this summer that the YCC was involved in, one of a couple of projects. And just say thanks for what Diane Lane and the Desert Planters had done in their time here with their big Rose Garden. She was very supportive of the makeover, but like I say, she was just unable to make it tonight. And we don't have any members of the YCC here either, but we want to say thanks to them as well. Project turned out great.
Yeah, and just kind of for, well, most of us probably know this, but if you go out by the splash pad and the green awnings, you know, and the shade structures, that was one of the YCC projects this year, and of course the Rose Garden redo. They worked really hard for $8 or $9 an hour in this summer heat, you know, in this drought. So kind of tip of the hat to those folks for all the hard work they did all summer. So thanks.
Kudos to Ed Kotique, Jeff Blackburn, and Jeff Newland, who's not here, but Jeff Newland is the YCC coordinator. Jeff's the parks director. Ed is special projects manager, and they were all heavily involved in the project as well.
All right.
Another great job.
Yeah, it looks great. Thank you. I think that's it, right?
That's all I have.
Okay. Next up is employee recognition.
A couple of recognitions tonight. We've got some new department heads amongst us. We have our new Public Works Director here, Steve Morse. Welcome.
Yes,
All
welcome.
right. All right. It's about time.
Our new Library Director, Angela Watkins, is here. And new Parks Director as well, Jeff Blackburn.
Yeah.
And that's all I have, sir.
All right. Well, congratulations to our 3 new department heads. That is, man, especially Public Works. I know we've been waiting for a little while, so, but all of you, welcome. It's great to have kind of the pieces falling into place, and, you know, I'm sure you guys are going to do fantastic. Let's see. Any other employee recognition? So next is consent agenda. Items placed on the consent agenda will be voted upon with one motion. If there are any items that do not meet the approval of a commissioner, then that item may be pulled for further discussion under items from the consent agenda. So with that said, are there any items that any commissioners would like to pull from tonight's consent agenda for further discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to pull item J for further discussion.
Item J is the RFP 2019-662 City Attorney Contract Award. Anybody else have anything?
No.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item J concerning the RFP for the city attorney contract.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item J.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. So, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to get this thing to... There we go. Okay. So now we are at items from the consent agenda. Item J concerning the RFP. Let me get back to the... So it's RFP 2019-662, the City Attorney Contract Award, for some further discussion. Commissioner Randall, did you want to kick this off?
Sure. I just had some questions. First off, as far as going with the firm, Kathy or Steve, I know it listed a couple people. I just didn't know who would be the actual one sitting up here and how that's supposed to work with them. It's just weird going with the firm. Sorry, I just wanted more clarification on how that's going to work with our actual attorney.
Would give us the option of who we would want setting up here to help with the commission during the commission process, and then also the point person for the firm. They would designate one person.
Okay, so we'd have, I mean, they'd give us an option, like we would review or try a few of them out to see which one.
No, it's only two people.
Just the two of them, okay.
Risley and then Unsicker.
Okay.
So they said that we could designate who we would want to be the point person for the firm.
Okay.
So by hiring the firm, and I kind of have already had this conversation, but just to kind of, for folks here and for the commissioners, of course, and for maybe my further knowledge, so by hiring the firm, we're hiring their resources and their ability to have more, I guess, to offer us as far as resources and ability to litigate or do contracts, but we'll have a consistent presence of one of them. Because I guess what my concern is, and it's not really a concern, but I don't see it happening, but I personally wouldn't want them to kind of be taking turns kind of thing. I would like some consistency and some continuity, so we have somebody that we can kind of get a working relationship with, barring anything major or out of the way that we might need to get some extra help with.
That was our thought as well, Mr. Mayor. Another thought that came up during the process as well is if there was a firm with only one lawyer, and if they get sick, have to be out for an extended time, there's really no fallback for that particular firm or person. Whereas this one, we do have, if one has to take, for whatever reason, extended absence, there's still coverage for legal representation for us.
One of the questions I had, and maybe Kathy might be better equipped to answer this, I don't know, but as far as our past either I guess Mr. Thrower has been our attorney for a dozen or more years, so I don't really think it's necessary to go back much further beyond him, but just based on his tenure here, because one of the things, and I'll just address the elephant in the room kind of thing, we're proposed to pay Risley Law Firm $7,000 a month. I believe we were paying Mr. Thrower, I'm guessing around 50. Okay, I was going to say around 55 or so. So with that not small leap in monthly retainer, I guess my question regarding when Mr. Thrower was here was how often did we go beyond that 40 hours of, I guess, I don't want to say free, you know what I mean, but included hours that were part of the monthly
when we were
retainer.
Preparing the RFP, we went back and did research. We didn't go back the full tenure with Mr. Thrower, but over a 49-month period, there were 18 months that went over 40 hours. The average, the total hours that was 181 hours, so an average of a little bit over 10 hours a month. I didn't go back this evening to try to identify if there were specific issues
that
had resulted in that. And those are concerns of the evaluation committee as well as anyone in the city. And so what we have talked about is how do we make ourselves more efficient to avoid some of these overages. I mean, there'll be times that we can't avoid those depending on the issue, but to minimize those as much as possible. And that'll be something that we work internally with staff, as well as then it wouldn't just be the Risley firm, it would be any attorney that the city retained the services of, that we have a good communication, we establish what those procedures are, so again, that we maximize the service to the city and minimize the cost.
Okay. So is there anything, and I know you may have kind of already answered this, but is there anything that you have kind of immediately identified maybe to kind of just preemptively kind of keep the hours from getting carried away, like junk hours, for lack of a better term,
Yeah, one of the things that we had included in the RFP and we had required of Mr. Thrower was to maintain regular office hours at the city so that staff could have access to him on a regular basis. Those hours weren't always productive and not always efficiently used. And again, this would be something in meeting with whoever is retained to determine what the procedure is, but probably eliminating those hours on a regular schedule. Not that there wouldn't be time that the attorney would be over here to meet with staff, but not on a regular calendar basis to where they just block out 2 hours every week that they're just over here sitting, waiting for one of us to come talk to them. Okay. We've also talked about potentially, again, it kind of comes back to how we prioritize where we want an attorney's focus to be, and probably working through the city manager rather than each of us contacting the attorney directly and our issue is the priority. That we vet all of that through the city manager and allow the city manager to determine those priorities for both staff and for the attorney as well. And we hope with those changes, it doesn't necessarily streamline things for the city manager, but hopefully then that will provide us, allow the attorney to be more productive for us.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes,
have a couple
ma'am.
questions. So, were those 2 hours that Mr. Thrower had blocked out, or 2 hours, wasn't it, every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday, yes, ma'am.
Was that part of was that where the overages came into play?
Not
a lot, or no?
necessarily. It could have been part of it. He hasn't had any overages since we renegotiated the agreement
Right.
in March.
Okay.
All of these had occurred prior to the RFP that was issued earlier this year. In prior months, there could have been land issues. And again, I didn't go back and look, but things that may have required a little more research on his behalf that just took some additional time. And when we had, before we awarded the agreement to Mr. Thrower, we had sat down to determine how best to handle those office hours, because he was also frustrated in spending time that he felt was non-productive. And that was the same concern that was expressed with the attorneys that we interviewed, is that they don't want to just be present and not be productive during that time frame.
Okay, thank you.
You have another question?
One
Yeah.
more question. Does this firm, the Risley, is that Risley? Did I say it right?
Yes, ma'am.
Firm, do they have municipal
They
experience?
don't. Of the 4 that submitted proposals, and we did interview all 4 of them, only one had any municipal experience, and that was 10 years ago, and it was for not quite 2 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, in best of all worlds, we would have liked to have that experience, but
Basically, none of them had any current municipal
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
experience, and things have probably changed a lot in the last 10 years.
right, yes.
So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
I have another question.
No.
I have, did you say
No,
yes?
go ahead. No,
Okay, and that, when listening to you made me think of another question, regarding Mr. Thrower, previous attorney. How often did he actually, give us 40 hours? Like actually do 40 hours, or like right there, like 38, 39, to where it was kind of a full plate, could have been close, or even in the ballpark?
There were a few months where he was not near the 40 hours. I would say the majority of the time we were probably in that 35-hour range.
Okay.
And typically those short hours were probably like in December. with the holidays.
Right.
Shorter, usually only
Right.
one commission meeting and that. But for the most part, we were utilizing him, maybe not up to the 40, but within.
It wasn't like
a few
15
hours.
or something, yeah.
No, sir.
So,
No, sir.
because that makes me want, as far as the 8 hours of office time, give or take, depending on the length of the month. So that'll bring those hours down. Because additionally, the overage hours, the billable hours, are significantly higher
Yes, sir.
than what Mr. Thrower, well, it depends. What is it? Yeah, it would be about the same if Ms. Unsicker is our billable attorney. And it would be about, 30% more, 25% more or so. Someone do the math, or it's in that ballpark. If Mr. Risley, and I guess another question I have was, how do we track that? I mean, is it just one of those things where we say, okay, we believe your billing, folks, or we're trusting that you're going to tell us the truth, and that...
There definitely is a level of trust to
Okay.
that. An itemized bill is to be provided, which details the times and what the topics were that were dealt with. That billing goes through the city manager for their review and approval. Again, it'll just be a process, where Mr. Mueller is comfortable in reviewing that, what information he needs from the attorney. Is there tracking that we need to develop internally? It'll be a process. And there was a trust factor with
Right.
Mr. Thrower.
And I'm not to suggest that anybody would bill just under Mr. Risley just to pad the billing. I'm just saying I'm just curious if there's something in place to kind of keep an eye on that.
There will need to be a lot of communication
Right.
within the first
Okay.
6 months or so, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And that is something, because whenever they break it down, he'll break down like cases he's worked on and things like that. So that's something even Judge could check with Steve and say, do you really think it took this long?
Correct.
On this, I mean,
And those are things
does that make
within
sense? Or
the
is that?
evaluation committee we had talked about, and is that, it would add a little bit of time to the review process, but is that something that could be initiated, that those that had involvement with the attorney during the month would also be part of that review process?
That's just the pain. Same thing with engineering services. If you get an invoice that says, 4 hours, well, was it really 4 hours just to tell us that you can't build a bridge? Or it's just, I just hate billable hours. And if we can choose, I would say if they give us an option, we go with Miss Unsicker because she's $75 an hour cheaper. So, just little things. I don't know.
With Ms. Unsicker, I'm sorry, she's in the community, so she has an interest in Aztec, and so I would agree that would probably be our choice, just simply because of her investment in the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that as well.
And those billing questions, it goes back to the building of trust over time
Right.
on both sides, which, is going to take a little bit.
Mark? Commissioner Lewis?
You already answered
Okay.
all of mine. sir.
I just want to, I do have some hesitancy. I do trust that the staff did their due diligence, so this is not a knock on anybody. It's just, that's a lot of money. And while I'm not by nature fiscally conservative, that figure still, it's like, wow, that's 20% more than we were paying the previous attorney.
Correct.
And I'm not suggesting that Mr. Risley's firm doesn't rate that kind of money, because you get what you pay for, and I recognize that, but I kind of liken it to, I guess, an insurance policy. I may want to pay a $250 deductible, but my rate may be higher than I really can afford, so I'm kind of balancing the two, and I have to spend, kind of make that gamble, I guess, or that calculated risk by having a higher deductible that, I can afford the monthly payment in hopes that nothing really, really goes bad. But if it does, I still can probably swing it. And that's kind of the way I'm approaching this. And that's kind of the metaphor that keeps coming into my head. So I do have a few reservations, just because of the expense and the size of our town. It's a lot of money.
Yes, and the committee agrees. We don't like the additional fees associated, but we are hoping to offset that with the resources that will be available to the city.
So are we hoping that they will just be more efficient and be able to
Possibly
provide?
More efficient, more responsive.
Okay. And maybe avoid, by doing a great job the first time around, so we don't have change orders and things like that, and issues with contracts and et cetera.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that's the big picture goal.
Yeah.
More efficient and timely.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I apologize. I'm not trying to beat anybody over the head. I just, there's as people were talking, it just made me think of other questions and things. So, thank you. Unless anybody else has anything they need to. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
No, the expense was my concern, and I'm also interested in the discussion about we could pick one or the other, and the comment that Ms. Unsicker has ties to Aztec. I like that. I like that they're part of the community, and I just wonder how do we pick?
Yeah, that's a good. I was going to ask the same thing.
My
Yeah.
choice of somebody who is tied to the Aztec community.
Yeah. How is that decision going to be made? Or
Well, it'll be made by the city.
Okay.
When we did the interviews, the firm made it very clear that this would be the city's choice. If the RFP is awarded to the Risley firm, we'll start the agreement execution and all of that type of thing. But one of our first things will be to set up a meeting with the firm as well as department heads. I don't know if any commission wants to be involved in meeting with the attorneys, and to get an idea who do we, start developing that relationship. And
just for the record, I would like to, if possible.
okay.
I can't speak for the others, but speaking for myself, I would love to be as included in this as much as possible, as much as is allowed, kind of thing. I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I would like to be involved as much as I can.
Okay.
So.
Depends on what it is.
Okay.
And we'll have to be careful with.
Yeah, I can't get a quorum. We can't have everyone meet with them individually, but
Right.
I mean, we could have some involvement just simply because of your interaction with the attorney, both in this and what you'll be looking for from the
Okay.
attorney as well.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody feel good? You good? Okay. I guess we'll close discussion. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Steve. We'll close discussion on item J from the consent agenda. And barring any further comments or conversation, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, move to approve the award of RFP 2019-662 municipal legal services to the Risley Law Firm and authorize the city manager to sign the professional services agreement on behalf of the city.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we do we need to do a roll on that? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign? Okay. Thank you. We are moving on to citizens' input. There are 3 minutes maximum. Citizens who wish to speak will sign up prior to the meeting. This is for items not otherwise listed on the agenda. Do we have anybody that has signed up for citizen input today? All right. Okay. No citizen input. So next is business items. Let's see, our first business item is item A. Our first and only is intent to adopt ordinance 2018-482, municipal gross receipts tax. And I believe we have Kathy up again.
Mayor, Commission, I presented before you as an intent to adopt ordinance 2018-482, which is an increase in the municipal gross receipts tax rate. We had workshopped this item 3 weeks ago, and this is the result of that, is for Commission to make a decision whether to increase the gross receipts tax, and also, if so, what increment that would be increased by. The timeline, if we wanted to have something effective, a new tax rate effective by January 1st, this action needs to start tonight to make that timeline. If commission isn't ready to proceed, we could still work on this process through the fall, winter, but it wouldn't be effective then until July of 2019. I included a lot of information in the staff summary. I don't know if you want me to go through all of that or if you have specific questions that I could address.
I don't personally. There might be others. I just, just looking at it, the numbers that kind of jumped out to me were kind of the low end and the high end.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess if we were to decide as a commission that we would need to also include that in the motion, if we decided to do instead of the 1/8 the full quarter, and then we just double those numbers essentially.
Correct.
So.
Yes.
Did I pretty much
That's
summarize it?
If commission, the way the ordinance is drafted, you're correct, is at the lower end. And if you wish to enact the full, both increments that are available to us, that would need to be included in the motion. The ordinance is also drafted to where if the tax revenue derived is just for general purpose, which means it goes into general fund. If commission desires to direct those proceeds to a specific purpose other than just to general fund, that would also need to be included in the motion so that we can make those adjustments to the ordinance.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
What do we think? Anybody have any questions or
comment? Actually, I'm leaning more towards the what is it, the 1/8 full. Well, I don't know. The difference isn't that well. As far as the impact isn't going to be huge.
So yeah, maybe you could speak to that as far as on the average. I'm still on the agenda. I don't have the actual staff summary in front of me. But if we were, the difference, I mean, it's just basically doubling.
Correct.
The amount that it would cost you per, and I appreciate the way you broke down basically the chunk of money. If you spend $100, it's going to cost you this much more at this specific tax increase rate.
Correct. So, and again, this is just rounding because we're working with 3-digit numbers.
So if I spend $100 at, well, Safeway's a bad example because there's no food tax, but let's suppose there's a Walmart here.
13 cents if we enacted the .125. If the .25 was enacted, you're 26 cents, depending on how the stores do the rounding.
So it's it's 1/4 of 1%. Yeah.
Correct.
So I mean, so you'd be paying about a quarter more if you bought a part at, bought tires at Big O, or you bought a part at Advance or wherever, O'Reilly's.
Correct.
Hardware store, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah, because it'll apply to everyone.
So, yeah, I mean, and when you break it down like that, to me, and I know it hurts, and it's never popular to raise taxes, because you're paying more, But I personally am just speaking for myself. I feel like it's not something that only the citizens of Aztec are going to bear the load of. It's going to be every person that drives through here and buys, a Coke and 10 gallons of gas. Anybody that stops through, stops at Jack's Plastic Welding, and we're still competitive with the surrounding towns and areas.
Yes.
So I personally, just again speaking for myself, I don't feel like it's even that big of a stretch to do the full 1/4 of 1%, because just considering, and I'm an optimist, we'd be looking at nearly $300,000
Potentially.
on the low side, $250,000, and this isn't just projections. This is off of using the GRT from the last couple of months. The trends that we're in right now, we would be realizing, an extra, $20 or $30, $25, $22,000, something like that.
Correct.
Above the low end projection.
Correct. Depending on which increment is implemented, But yes, and you're right, I used the conservative. You can see when I went out and did a 5-year, that number is significantly greater, but also the economy was a little different a few years ago.
Right.
So, but using the conservative, yeah, we're looking at 100, I don't have all these numbers memorized.
It was 154,000 on the high side and 126 on the low, or?
Yes, 124 on the low side.
Okay. So that's it's almost a $30,000 spread
Right.
on the high side. So let's cut it in the middle, say 140,
Right.
realistically. We're looking at $280,000 that we don't have right now for a quarter if you spend $100. And I'm not trying to sell it, but I just, it doesn't seem like a big reach for me. And that's, I guess, where I'm at on it. And I'm happy to hear comments or questions.
So refresh my memory, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No, yeah.
If we implement the whole quarter percent, where does that put us with the surrounding area?
Highest.
That'll put us back to the highest.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
Which we've heard over and over and over and over and over again.
That's, well, top of the list.
Yeah, I know. So
yeah,
that's
there
what
is that
that's what I thought I
perception.
remembered.
Yes.
The eighth would not, but the quarter would.
Correct.
Which sounds
Sorry.
silly, but it is a big deal with the perception just when people
It
look at
is.
it. I mean, even though if you explain it's not that much, well, it's still the highest in the
It's
county. It's
just-
just, that's what,
Yeah, it's just when you look at those percentages.
That perception has hurt us in certain areas through the years, even though it wasn't always true, that perception. But I'd a whole lot rather see us do something with the gross receipts tax than to do something to mess with the hold harmless at this point.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
there is
It's just
absolutely no benefit. I mean, there's a
No.
short-term benefit to
Right.
the city, but the long-term, it's detrimental. The way the statute's
It
written
is.
right now.
It is.
There's no benefit to the city.
It is.
And even with, I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, I was noticing in your information packet, also looking at seeing what other entities have raised their gross receipts at over the past years. I mean, we haven't had a raise since 03, 04, right?
Correct.
And the county, I was looking at how much it has raised its gross receipts, and it's considerable.
And actually, the city of Farmington is considering tonight on their agenda.
Is
Yeah.
looking at it. And Farmington has been impacted by the hold harmless due to their population.
Right.
So their distribution is already decreasing as a result of it.
So we're not the only one looking at
No,
looking at
we're
this.
fortunate because of our population, we aren't calculated into that automatic,
Right.
but if we did implement any percent of the hold harmless, we would then be,
Right.
so.
And if I could make another comment, and I'm not discounting what anybody has said, and I've only been here 4 years, so I don't have the history that a lot of you guys up here do. Well, everybody up here has a lot longer history in Aztec than I do. But we pay taxes everywhere we live. And I personally don't notice those smaller increments. I mean, if we were saying we're going to go up 2%, that's real money. And that's something that I would probably consider if I could go over to another municipality just 10 minutes down the road. And even then, honestly, I don't know, but just for argument's sake, it may, if it was a larger purchase, I guess, it might be real money and make it worth your while. But just speaking for myself, I don't really look that much. If I need to get gas or I need to buy something, the money that I'm going to save driving to Farmington or Bloomfield or Durango is not going to be anywhere near, the little bit of extra that I pay in taxes, and it's going into the operation of our general fund and our city government. So I look at it that way as one of those things that I personally see it's kind of a perception of the perception, if that makes sense. And I think we get kind of hung up on that sometimes, that there's this assumed perception that we are overtaxed and unfriendly to business, but in reality, I think, we're not. And that's what I'm going to drive forward, is the data doesn't really support that, in my opinion. So
I think a lot of the issue comes when people look, you figure you have a company looking to relocate somewhere and they just look at the sheet, well, we want to be in Sumner County just because that's the area we want to be. and when they look at the sheet, they just see, well, Aztec's the highest. I mean, even though it's not a whole lot, I want to say that's what I've heard in the past anyways, is when they're looking, it just kind of turns them off if they're the top one. I mean, even though it's a little bit, I mean, I agree it's, 25 cents versus 13 cents on $100. I mean, to me, it's the same thing. It seems very minimal, but I'm thinking the bigger companies and construction companies and things like that when they're bidding, yeah. I mean, well, I guess those are out of town, but I don't know. It's just so hard when you.
It is.
It's so small, but yet it's such a big
look at the numbers,
thing.
but not necessarily do the calculation as to what
Right.
that impact actually is.
Right.
And I think we maybe make it bigger than it should be. We make it into a bigger number just by saying, oh, we're going to raise taxes. And you're like, oh. And I think sometimes we feed into that perception and that kind of, stress by making a big deal out of it. I mean, because literally it's 25 cents on $100.
Right.
A lot of people in this neighborhood spend $5 on a cup of coffee. I mean, so it's, in some cases, I do believe that it's a warranted concern for extra because there is a portion of our city that are counting pennies. But I think by and large, the bulk of our population is not really worried about that quarter on. Like I said, they're going to Durango Joe's or Starbucks and they're dropping $5 on a latte and thinking nothing of it. And I'm guilty of it too. So, and I don't want to diminish anybody's statement or concern. I don't mean it that way. I really just think that we it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we make a big deal out of it, that it turns into a big deal. And that's my last comment on that. Mayor Pro Tem, you have any input? I keep forgetting you're down there on the iPad.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. When we were in the workshop, I felt pretty strongly that the 0.25% ought to be considered instead of the 8%. That if we're going to do it, let's do something meaningful, and then let's be very careful with the funds that we obtain from that, and to build up the general funds and not have it for any specific expense. I've also looked over those charts statewide. I know it ends up being kind of a stigma regionally as far as having the highest sales tax, but throughout the state there are communities that have considerably higher gross receipts tax. So when I looked at those, I didn't feel too badly, and I don't know other ways. We've got to explore all the ways that we might be able to increase our revenue. But I feel somewhat supportive of the 0.25 and going into the general fund.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody?
One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Kathy, so if we do the 0.25%, does that mean that our administrative fees will double from what you had estimated in here?
Yes.
Am I reading that right?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
I had it right. Thank you. I was hoping maybe not, but.
No, it's based on the percentage of the revenues that's derived, and so that, again, the revenue side is conservative, the expense side, the admin
It's
side
fixed,
is conservative, meaning that it's probably higher than what it would be.
Yeah.
It's just how I go about
Yes.
this, so.
No, yeah, that's good. Okay. Anybody else? All right. If there's no other discussion or questions, comments, we'll close it for discussion and entertain a motion for the 0.25% of GRT.
Nobody wants to make the motion.
Don't leave me hanging.
Go ahead, Commissioner, or Mayor
I
Pro
know, I
Tem
was thinking
Fire.
about it.
I move to pass the intent to adopt the ordinance 2018-482 municipal gross receipts tax at 0.25%, and with it going to the general fund.
Did she say 0.25?
Yes.
0.25.
Second.
Just clarify, Mayor Pro Tem, you said .25. I thought you did, I just want to clarify.
0.25, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Carla, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Snover,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fry,
Aye.
Commissioner Sykes,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner Randall.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. All right. Next item on the agenda is our liquor license hearing. We'll be doing a hearing on item A for 550 Brewing Company, LLC, doing business as 550 Brewing Company, 119 East Chuska, new liquor license. Hey, Dwayne.
Hello, hi Mayor, Commissioners. All right, yes, this is for 550 Brewing Company LLC, the off-site liquor license. This is required because they did move their master license from where it was previously to Main Street, now here in Aztec. This is for the off-site that's located at the hub at 119 East Chuska. And it's required because they're within 300 feet of a church. So, and the state requires that anytime that happens, that we need to have a public hearing to hear any comments regarding
Oh,
that.
so because they moved it,
Yeah,
they have to basically reapply for a new one where there are, because
Right,
it changed it.
Right, their master license
I see.
changed, so then
Okay.
therefore they have to change their, is that correct?
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, because they already had one for
Right.
this location, so
Right.
because their masters changed, this has to change as well to go with that change. And we've had no comments that I'm aware of. No one's contacted me or the city clerk. So this is just a
Okay.
requirement from the state because of the waiver they need.
All right, so we can open it up for any comments or discussion or questions of Ms. George? Mrs. George?
Go ahead.
I do have a question. So since it's the brewing's now on Main Street, this is the ability to serve it at the hub.
Right, as an
Since
off-site
the-
license.
As the offsite.
Right, the
Just because
master-
the brewing location moved from where we had it before to Main Street.
Right, the master license has to be established first, and
Okay.
then any off-site license after that needs to be established.
And we established the master license a couple meetings ago.
Right.
Right, right.
Correct.
Okay, I'm tracking.
So I guess my question is, going forward, it's probably for Mr. Pascal, are both places going to be open, or is it still the goal to be just in the brewery location on Main Street? Or is the goal to serve at both places? I was just curious what the...
Our goal is to serve both places as long as we qualify to be at the hub.
Okay. So, and this is probably a different conversation about the hub. I just to know if we're still working towards graduating out of the hub, I guess, at some point. So I don't know if that's for Stephen or someone else for the...
No, I think that was the ultimate goal, is to put somebody in there, let them build a business, and then, yes, migrate out.
And I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think I understand what you're saying. So assuming that whether we keep custody and control of the hub, or whether a private party takes it over, either as a lease agreement or an outright purchase, the intent is for 550 to continue having the tasting or whatever, the tap room, in that facility, regardless of who the owner is. And they're going to have now their master license is at, I guess, the old Sunshine Bakery. Am I saying that right?
No.
Am I
In the hub?
correct?
Well, no, if the city owns it, I think they would plan on migrating out as a business that has developed to move on the Main Street. If it's sold, that becomes
That's
a
between
completely
that's between the
different
Pascals and
animal.
the new owners.
Right.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know they'll migrate eventually once the lease that we just renegotiated expires.
Right.
So in the interim, they're going to be doing both,
Correct.
regardless of who owns the hub. We'll call it, or the 119 Chuska, the building there. So either way, if somebody were to buy it yesterday, they're going to continue with the lease agreement that we have, or is that
Well,
going to be?
No, that's not necessarily the case, because if we sold, that would be up to the new owners.
Right.
Unless we sold with the condition that they'd be allowed to finish their
Right.
agreement.
So either way, it's really kind of a moot point at this point.
Right, yeah, because
Okay.
this is just.
So we're
for
going forward
what
as
is
if,
happening right
as
now.
the owners of the hub, they're going to stay in the location until further notice. Either their lease runs out with us or a private party purchases or leases and they negotiate with them. But for this intents and purposes today is for, to give them their offsite at the hub right now.
Correct.
As it sits.
As it stands now,
Got it.
yes.
Okay.
Just,
I didn't mean to muddy the waters there, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify a little bit, the ultimate goal of a business incubator is to incubate those, the ultimate goal is to
Yeah.
incubate those businesses.
And it seems to have
them
worked
move
ahead of
out.
schedule.
And so, you
Yeah.
know, so that's just a little clarification on the
Right.
actual,
Yeah, and this has nothing to do with any of that.
Right.
And
Well,
that's-
nothing to that. I was
that's
just, that was
right.
just sorry.
Right, no,
Right.
that's
My
okay.
fault.
And just to quickly clarify Commissioner Randall's comment, so we're gonna operate as it is until further notice. The 550 is in there as a business incubator. There is an expiration date on that, and that date is approaching. They've been in there for some time. So, but until then, we're just gonna operate as is, as a business incubator model, and
Okay.
And you can still serve like at the brewing location, correct?
yes.
Okay, so you don't need like a separate permit to serve at the same location where it's being brewed or anything?
Correct.
Okay. Cool.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Delaney. Sorry.
You're welcome, no, that's okay, fine. Questions are good.
Okay. If there's no other comments or discussion, we'll close discussion and entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to move to approve the small brewer off-site liquor license for 550 Brewing Company LLC located at 119 East Cheska Street, Aztec, New Mexico.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Carla, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Stover,
Aye?
Mayor Pro Tem Frye,
Aye.
Commissioner Randall,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner Sykes,
Aye.
motion passes 9-0.
Okay. Item 14, city manager / commissioner / attorney reports. Mr. Mueller.
I don't have much of a report, but I've got, and the Talon is doing a special section honoring first responders in the paper, and I think it would be a good idea for the city to buy an ad to support our first responders. Just wanted to throw it out to you guys to get your thoughts. 16th page is $60, goes all the way up to a half page for $480 at black and white, or half page color for $720. But regardless of,
size.
yeah, I just think it'd be a great idea to honor the first responders, and they've had a pretty tough summer, especially up in the Colorado area, and
Yeah.
California's going on right now, and what our first responders deal with on a daily basis is, I think, worth recognition.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Any thoughts on the page, or shall we? I'll show you the flyer and we can look at options.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. All right, let's see. I guess we'll just go down the line. Commissioner Sipe.
Did you want to get Commissioner, or Mayor Pro Tem
All
Frye
right.
first? or-
Yeah, we can go ahead with Mayor Pro Tem. Do you have a report?
Yes, I attended the Four Corners Economic Development Foundation annual board meeting, and it was a general annual meeting approving the budget and electing new officers, and I was asked to serve as the vice president for this next year, so I accepted that position. I'll be taking place of Sally Burbridge, who is now an employee of the Four Corners Economic Development group. I also received a request from Pamela Drake at San Juan County Partnership to serve on their board of directors, and that was approved by their current board, and so in September I'll start attending the board meetings of the partnership, and I worked for the partnership for about 8 years, and they serve the community during alcohol drug prevention programs, and Aztec was often the recipient of those programs. I'm quite honored to get to participate there. And at the end of the month, I'm going to go to the Municipal League Conference with some other folks there. I look forward to learning new things and participating in that conference. So that's it.
Okay. All right. Now, Commissioner Sykes.
Last week, I attended a Northwest New Mexico Seniors meeting. Unfortunately, it was a policy board meeting, and our Northwest New Mexico Seniors Director has resigned, so we'll be in the process of looking for that position. It's kind of a tireless, thankless position, unfortunately. It's just with all the red tape and everything that they have to deal with on a daily basis, but and looking at a lot of changes like a lot of other organizations are looking at now. So I went to the last week I also attended the Connie Mackerel Series City and County Officials Night. That was a lot of fun, as always. There was quite a few county and city officials there. Great game. So I was rooting for the La Miranda, California team. They ended up third in the tournament. They came in, they won the Last Chance tournament in Albuquerque, and actually played my grandson's team and put us out of the tournament. But it was kind of neat to actually know somebody that was playing, and I had gotten acquainted with one of the moms, and they shared what a great experience they'd had up here, and they want to come back when they have time to do some sightseeing. All they did was baseball while they were here, so. But they kind of ended up being the La Miranda team kind of ended up being a town favorite. So it was fun. It was fun to watch them. It's always a good tournament. So also today I went to the legislative hearing. Mr. Mueller and I attended the legislative hearing on at San Juan College about the closure of the San Juan plant and the impact that that's going to have on the communities around. There was a lot of good input. I did not stay for the whole thing. I stayed till noon, and then they were actually going till later into this afternoon, and there's some more tomorrow. So it's quite an extensive. But all of our legislators were there, yes. Senators and representatives, and they gave reports. Sally Burbridge gave a really good presentation from Four Corners Economic Development about the impacts and the numbers. Somebody from San Juan Regional Medical Center was there to give their input on what the impact's going to be on the healthcare system. It was a really good informational hearing, and it was interesting listening to all of those folks that presented. So tomorrow I have another Northwest New Mexico Seniors meeting as we kind of make a plan forward with looking for a new director. Thursday I have the EDAB meeting, and also I may have to skip the EDAB meeting to go. Rosalind asked me to fill in for her at the San Juan College. The UNM college president is going to be here, and so I'm probably going to attend that after talking with Stephen and got an excuse to go. So, excuse from the EDAB meeting. I will be attending the New Mexico Municipal League Conference in Roswell the last week in August, and so I will not be at that last commission meeting because it happens during that week. So hopefully we'll have a quorum if Commissioner Fry's going also.
Yeah, you're not going either, right? I'm not going. So
okay, so
at least three
you
of us.
gentlemen will hold down the fort.
We'll FaceTime you in.
So,
yeah.
So anyway, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Randall.
I just wanted to say congratulations to Angela and Jeff in their new positions. That's really great. And
yes.
Welcome Mr. Morse to Public Works. I'm sure you're going to have a great time over there and here at the city.
Get a scary muff.
We had people scrambling for that job. It was just crazy. I'm sure. But I do not know exactly when you started or who to thank for it, but the crosswalks, I'm glad they got done before school started.
Yeah.
It's always kind of a pet peeve of mine, and it looked great. I mean, I mainly noticed the ones around the high school, but they looked good. And had a question for Steve, mainly on Reservoir 1. I know we got the email from you. I just didn't know if there's an update and if there's anything. Was it the contractor's fault, or is there an it
No.
blows my mind that we just
Yeah, in talking to Clayton and Andrew, it looks like the reservoir had set dry for a while. The original lining was clay, dirt concrete type mix, and the chance of it cracking as it dried and sat there for a while, it looks like that's what happened to it. Doesn't appear that the contractor that cleaned it out had any effect on it at all.
Okay.
And the possibility was there, but trying to get it done and usable. It's not a very significant leak. It's not like a big stream running out, but it's where it's running out is the problem on the 173.
So that was the cause of coming down the side of the road and everything, and the reasoning for all the barrels. And
yeah, well, and what they were trying to do is find a point to where they could intercept the leak, if you will, and divert it away from the road,
fair, okay.
And then we still would have had the reservoir full. Because like I say, it's not that big of a leak. It's just where it was leaking to.
Is there a time frame on when we can expect to?
We'll have to go out to an RFP to find somebody that is certified, qualified, ready to be notified as a dam expert to look at the liner and assess the dam, if you will.
Hopefully there's a lot of dam experts out there.
Yeah, that's might be an issue.
I guess my one question too is, and it might be for Kathy, is there, due to the drought and everything that we're in, is there any emergency that we can go forward on some of this? I'm sure you guys are looking at it. Not funding, but as far as to, accelerate the process on the RFP and everything, or is it not considered that vital to our water system? I mean, to me, it's storage. It's pretty important, but I didn't know if you guys had talked about that or not.
Well,
No.
I think as a staff, we haven't talked about it. I talked with Andrew briefly this afternoon because I hadn't heard a status on the project. And so we were just throwing some things out, and it's very unofficial at this point. The concern, of course, is if the fix for reservoir number 1 is expensive, and expensive, $500,000, $1 million. Do we want to spend it there? The reservoir provides about 15 days of storage, and so I think as staff, and we have a new public works director to include in this analysis, is determining, what we want to do with reservoir number 1.
So we're okay with just 2 and 3?
Now, it's not an optimal, but reservoir 1 is not providing a significant amount of storage to us. And even the fix isn't going to happen in a short time frame.
It just goes back to talking with Andrew back, I just understand how the settling helps and all that stuff, and then now if we fill up 3 with sediment, if it's the first one it comes to from the river, it's going to start filling up, and that's, the fishing hole, so we don't want to mess with that one at all. But realistically though, I don't know, it freaks me out seeing an empty reservoir when the river's so low.
My comment was that, do we just look at a short-term fix, or maybe we look at something more long-term that might be more beneficial to the community over a 20, 30-year period?
Okay. All right. Well, and I know you guys are working on it. I just wanted to make sure something, because it freaks me out every time I drive by there and see it empty again.
And there was no option of diverting the water away from 173?
We tried.
You tried?
Yeah.
Just to bring it back into the...
Right. And even today, it's still, with the reservoir empty, there is still some seepage running down alongside the road. We could not get it to
Completely.
run into the pond on the side.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Commissioner Lewis?
Well, I spent last week up in mountains of Colorado where it rained every day, and people thought I was nuts because I'd go out and stand in it. But I was wondering, I believe the state engineer's office issued, I don't think it's a call on the river, but it's a
Ditch rotation.
On the river. I've not heard anything about some of the ditches that go through Aztec yet, and I haven't been able to find anything online. So I was just wondering if there's anything out there that I don't know about that I can go to. Because I have people calling me, asking me, when are we going to be able to water I don't want to get fined, that kind of thing.
I got the schedule today. I'll forward it to everybody.
Okay, thank you. That would be most appreciated.
What they're doing is, and all the ditches are in this rotation, is 9 days on and 3 days off.
Yeah.
But I'll forward you the day schedules a little bit later.
Wonderful, thank you. Aside from that, no other report, except I'm feeling rested and tanned for the moment.
Okay. I don't really have a report. I just want to make a comment. You know, as a teacher at the local high school, we are officially back in school. You know, this is the second day that we have full complement of students. Things like the crosswalks are very visible. Some of the improvements that we will be continuing to go through, and I do know that some of the dealings with the school as they are going to be implementing changes to security, et cetera, traffic patterns perhaps, as they move forward with some of their plans and ideas to further secure specifically the high school, but all of our campuses in the district. I just ask that you be especially vigilant and be understanding, I guess, because we have new security guards. We are getting back into the swing of having teenage drivers racing around the streets. Just be aware that they're there, not only for your safety, but for theirs and your pets, all that kind of stuff. You know, you get lulled into a little bit of a sense of complacency over what may seem to some a long summer. And just kind of be aware that there's a lot of kids out there and there's going to be a lot of changes happening. So be as patient and flexible as you can be, and we certainly appreciate it. So that's all I've got as far as a report. So moving on to department reports.
I'm not going to get a speech. I'm just going to update you.
Stephen.
As Commissioner Fry, Commissioner Sipe had mentioned, we will be in Roswell presenting on the arterial to the Municipal League. As a result of that, I will not be here, but there is two land use items that are scheduled. So unfortunately, business must go on as usual. But we'll have Andrew DiCamillo present those cases to you. He's a very articulate gentleman, so I have full confidence that he will answer any question and present the material adequately. So I just wanted to update you on that come 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Thank you.
We're very glad that Stephen's going to go and present for us.
Oh, yeah,
on the
that's right.
arterial.
He's doing the arterial presentation. Hey, Chief.
Just quickly, I encourage our voting person in the Municipal League to please vote for the resolution 2018-37, which is the school safety one. So we're working hard on that, so thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Judge, I see you flinching. I don't know if you're coming up or just moving, changing your leg, crossing your legs the other way. Just want to make sure. Any of our new department heads wish to do anything? All right. Okay. Well, barring any other comments or department reports, move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.